Also, just listen to them on your spare time. Is what I do.
We've been down this dark road.
Yeah, I mean, I should. I just haven't done it.
We're gonna listen to Project Horizons on our way to BronyCon and back.
All right, the thingy is doing
Is that
the
what I
thing.
fucking sound like?
Oh my god, that's so funny. Yes, that's what you sound like, Ren.
Oh boy.
Alright, it should be starting any second now. There's about a 10-second lag. So, by the way, Ren, when you say, oh, hey, you missed that, I'm usually about half a mile away from it after that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if we go this way.
I will try to be less referential to the game because yes, I will be watching it on a significant lag.
Well,
Also,
not only that, you're also
your
going...
guy.
What?
No, I was gonna say your damn it's a dabber video needs more views because it deserves more views.
It totally deserves more views. Oh, by the way, I'm also playing this with the Pilgrim mod.
Oh man.
Oh man. Oh god, what happened? Oh, there we go. Exit save. Exit save, Commonwealth.
So, Rin.
Yep.
Is that a nickname or is that your actual name?
Both.
Oh boy.
I mean, you can call me Wardenclyffe if it makes you feel any better. Like, it doesn't really matter. Legally, I have the same name as my dad, but to distinguish them just within the family, I've chosen Ren. But on the other hand, as well, it's something where I do have credit cards in the name because it makes it a little easier to identify. But, like, mostly I'll go by my legal name for official stuff, and then people who know me call me Ren.
Jesus, this girl is
Just
so...
curious.
Nothing's
Such an
more
animu
satisfying
name.
than a smoking gun and a pocket full of caps.
Well, alright then.
Nothing else I needed.
No problem.
I'll probably be bringing my free Iwatobi Swim Club bag with shark tooth Ren on it.
Look here, just sitting there, not doing anything productive. Oh yeah, I need guns.
I was gonna make a joke about that, but it already flew out my ears, so don't worry about it.
Hang on, someone's pounding on my damn door.
It's me.
Shoot him.
So you excited for BronyCon?
Oh yeah, no, I'm pretty hyped for it. I finally got my my schedules out. I'm gonna be able to make it, so that's nice because I already put down the deposit for that kind
My
of
son
stuff.
came to the door specifically to give me a flip-flop.
Very nice.
Yes.
He must love you a lot.
Yeah, I mean, obviously. Wow.
It must be a very important flip flop.
I fucking guess.
Name it Flippity Doo.
Who can say what kids find valuable? They find value in the smallest things, and they're very cute because of it.
You ask him.
I mean, yeah.
Oh wait, where am I going? I'm going somewhere. Like,
What the fuck was that?
My favorite
what the fuck was that?
stuffed animal when I was a kid was a giraffe named Raffy, and his neck was like broken because the stuffing was squished down. So I just shoved a bunch of pencils in his neck to keep his head up.
Yeah, that's a kid thing to do.
Yeah.
Wow, this gun really blows dick. Oh, get going, Blackjack. Just run right out in front of this infantry.
Rest in peace, you little shit.
Alright.
So wait, like, what level are you, and how far are you into the game?
Let's put it this way, like a level 1. Oh shit, there's zombies. Let's put it this way. A level 1 sentry turret just took me 3 magazines.
Okay.
Oh boy.
He's running away.
Because all I'm thinking of is just like, man, my 10mm do way better than this. But it's like I got the full upgrade, suppressed, red dot size, all that good stuff.
I've got
You,
nothing. I literally used God mode to get to Blackjack, and that was the end of it. Now I'm in the middle of like the raging hellhole, and I'm out of stimpaks.
What the hell was that?
Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit!
Oh, no.
How do I
Oh,
run?
that-
I get out of here.
That's the thing too, Brandon. As much as you say, hey, don't we won't have, we can't tell you things because you'll be a couple seconds behind us. Your voice is also a couple seconds ahead of the shit that's gonna happen,
I know.
which is kind of hilarious. It feels like it's a horror movie out of sync.
Oh my god.
So, I got a funny story for you.
Oh, you're fucked in this corner.
That's Fallout related. My first time playing Fallout, I didn't know what to expect, so I almost died trying to leave the vault. It was Fallout 3, by the way. And the first thing that happened when I got out was I was like, oh no, I don't know what to do, so I'm just gonna start running around. And I went into the school and I was like, hey, this seems like a good place to loot. Immediately killed by raiders.
Yeah, that's kind of what's going on right here.
So then when I came back, I was like, okay, let's not do that. Let's go the other way. So I started running until eventually I ended up at this bridge. And there was like 2 raiders under the bridge. And one of them had a sledgehammer, which I took. And then I just bashed both of their heads in. And then I slept in their bed with their dead bodies next to the bed. Just a mattress or a bridge.
The full experience, really.
So I was running around with this fucking sledgehammer, just fucking doing damage. And eventually I ended up, like, wandering up into DC. And a bunch of people in armor were like, keep walking! And I was just like, oh boy! So I just kept going. Just checking shit out. And Super Mutant started chasing me. So I was like, fuck! And I started running. Until eventually I got into this, I got near one of those, like, above ground bomb shelter things that you can just close on you.
Preservation shelters.
Yeah, so I got inside that, and there was a teddy bear and a bottle of water on the ground. Bottle of purified water. I was like, fuck yeah! So I drank that, and then I opened it. I was like, are you gone yet? He was still there, so I just closed it again, and I was like, eh. Eventually, I ran out slinging with my sledgehammer, and I was just like, die, die, die! And my sister was like, I think your music on your Pip-Boy is getting him to follow you. And I was like, shit! So...
Yeah, I'm annoyed that is actually a mechanic in the game. Like, it makes sense, I understand, just like the lighting mechanic makes sense, but it always annoyed me that you couldn't just play the music, because it meant like, oh, now I gotta turn it off and listen to the atmospheric music, and I can't listen to any radio stations. So,
yeah.
It always felt like that was a larger oversight.
And then when New Vegas came around, which I liked a lot more than Fallout 3, by the way,
Most people did.
I was just like, oh man, I didn't even care. I played the radio from, like, the beginning, and I kept that shit on the whole time. And I was like, you wanna fuck with me? Die, bitch. And, I went through most of Fallout 3 with just a lead pipe, which is why my OC's name is Piper, by the way.
Here we go. Yeah, parkour! Oh, fuck! Oh,
Rip,
man.
motherfucker.
I mean, this is the thing. Like, I'm looking at this and I'm like,
let's go.
Brandon,
I have
you
no
are
life.
you're playing in a completely different style than I normally play. Like, I don't know about you guys. I play super conservative, stealth all the time, even in midday, single shot semi-automatic weapons only. Like
Not me.
That is my straight up playstyle because I really feel it's like exploiting sneak attack damage, exploiting stealth. You do, at least twice the amount of damage that you normally do in any circumstances.
Yeah, I
Careful
do
behind this
melee
car,
survival.
It takes too much damage.
I do melee survival,
Oh, I died.
usually.
Oh, that sucks.
But if I decide to do anything else, it's usually laser gun. Or laser pistol related. So,
I always
that shit's
pick,
cool as hell.
small ballistic weapons. Like you can't suppress lasers.
But my favorite weapon in the game is the lead pipe because I mostly use that. Well, that's not true. My favorite weapon in any Fallout game is the hollow rifle, and I'd never use anything else after that. So, I really liked the idea of Dead Money. The whole reason I wanted to play that game was for that DLC. I thought it looked really spoopy and cool. So when I finally got it, which was years later, I was like, I want to just check it out. I found the area to get into it. was like, I just want to check it out. I won't like stay in there. You know, I'm only level like 10, so that's okay. Yeah, I went into the Sierra Madre like
There, it's better.
prepared to fucking die. And I went to make a separate save, but my dog started barking and scared the crap out of me. And I saved over my original save.
Nice.
So I went through the Sierra Madre at level 10. But I made it out to level 18. So I beat it. It took forever. But I did do it. And I got stuck at this one spot. But I managed to get past it by accidentally just glitching into like something. There's this part with these two radios that you have to get past to get to the end of the casino. And no matter what I did, my collar would always explode.
I'm
Eventually,
trying to remember that.
though, yeah, it's like you're climbing up the stairs. There's one radio, and then there's one right above the door, but they're like back to back. So you can't take out either of them. So you have to like find a way up there really fast. And no matter what I did, I couldn't do it. I couldn't make it up there fast enough. So eventually, oh wait, no, you could do it. You could snipe them. I remember now. You can snipe one of them at least, the one above the door. So eventually, I fell off and landed on this little beam thing that was out of the radius of both of them. So I shot them both, and then I climbed back up, and I was able to get past it after dying like fucking 30 times
Oh wait,
and getting so frustrated.
I almost forgot. I have Blackjack as a companion. There we go. Now she's my friend.
Oh baby.
Cigarettes. Man, this place sucks. Oh man, dead old lady. Oh
Dead
yeah.
body.
Oh yeah, jackpot.
Feeling nostalgic or something? Could always get some cabs for that, I suppose.
Don't start shit with me.
All the other DLCs for New Vegas I didn't have many problems with that I can remember, but I remember that one part with the fucking radios. Oh, and the part with God and Dog and having to not set yourself on fire or set him on fire because it blows up the room with the gas.
Mm-hmm.
That took forever too. I was just like, how the fuck are you supposed to do this? I finally figured it out, but I was getting so frustrated. I was just like, ugh. I even tried using like a stealth boy to get past him. It did not work.
Alright, I gotta find the key.
You know, I was specialized in stealth, so every encounter that has to do with sneak past X,
Yes.
I ace pretty much almost immediately. It's one of the it's just the stat that I immediately go for in all these games. I'm not exactly sure.
Wait a minute.
Sorry.
No, not that. Black vest and slacks. All right, let's check this out.
I
Do you play
typically
fashion?
Don't judge me, Ren.
Like, do you literally just choose things that are more fashionable rather than picking the things that will give you the highest damage resistance?
Oh hell yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
You're not optimizing your build.
Shut up. Let me.
How are you supposed to have fun
let
if your
people
numbers aren't the
enjoy
biggest?
things. Fine, back to the fucking jumpsuit. Lightweight boiled leather left arm. That just sounds like something terrible that you would find on a menu in this world. You have padded jacket. Can I throw that on over top, or do I become naked when I put that on?
What I was trying to say is,
Yep,
is this my pencil? Yes, it is. I specialize in speech, like charisma and strength.
Speech is okay. It wasn't as big in 3 for me, so it wasn't that big in 4. And then once I learned all the stuff that you locked yourself out of in 4 that you couldn't get unless you had a high speech, I did another playthrough where I just basically focused on speech. And man, you can talk your way out of pretty much any scenario in New Vegas. I said 4 earlier, I meant New Vegas. In 4, it's important, but at this point, I really think that my choices in 4, I still have not finished it. I need to actually finish this one of these days. I need to go in, and every time that I have a important speech dialogue option, I quick save before it. Then I throw on all my charisma gear, and then I pop I think is it the cherry mentats or is it the
I think it's grape are the ones that are
I think,
supposed to
yeah, it might be grape that's like +5 charisma. And then every hard speech decision becomes an easy speech decision. So you don't have to worry about it too much. So that's what I do now just cuz I'm lazy and didn't want to spec in speech.
LOL.
I mean, come on,
Jesus,
it's
man.
not a bad skill, but like 90% of Fallout 4 is just combat. So you want to spec in small guns, you want to spec in armoring, you want to spec in, you want to get the perks for things like, commando, sniper, cowboy, all the stuff that gives you like, double damage for your bonuses and stuff like that. So you don't have to
Yeah.
be like sprinting towards people with shotguns.
I do have this deeper reason. Oh yes, I forgot. That's part of my mod, and I'm out of ammo for it.
There you go.
So, I have Fallout 76 pre-ordered.
Yeah, I am out for that.
Don't pre-order things. That's how the system gets you.
It was a gift from my boyfriend.
Oh, well, I guess I can't blame him.
Assume
You should yell at him and say that he shouldn't pre-order things because that's how they get you.
Well, we're both big Fallout fans.
I'm a huge Fallout fan, but the idea that companies are able to sell a game before they're done making the game annoys me.
Potato.
Because the whole point of doing it with like a Kickstarter is I don't have the money. Like I don't have the capital to invest towards this investment. Companies like Bethesda have the capital they need to invest towards things like Fallout. The idea that they're like, we have to sell it beforehand so we know how many people are going to buy it. It's like, it's a ridiculous notion that's based on a fallacy for them. They know how many people are going to buy it.
I always figured that they'd do it just so, you get your spot, because here, games sell out really bad here. Like, you can't get much unless you pre-order. But I do live in the middle of bumfuck Egypt, so
Oh, you're in Egypt?
no.
I was saying, like Egypt, okay, yeah, Mubarak isn't great at having a lot of imports into his country. But if it's anywhere in America, like, one,
I live on a farm out in the
buying
middle
it
of
digital because it doesn't ever really go out when it's digital. I mean, I used to buy a lot of physical copies of everything just because I loved having a physical copy of something. But eventually it turned into the install time was basically as long as the download time. So there was no difference between the two. So now
it is. We got it right out of the Bethesda launcher.
Yeah, I remember watching it at E3. I mean, the thing is, it's like Bethesda does good work. It's a little janky, but I'm worried that a focus on multiplayer in 76 and a focus on trying to make it like other games will turn it sort of into microtransaction hell, and a lot of things are going to kind of go away from the aspects of Fallout. Like I'm kind of into the idea of making it a DayZ or Rust sort of clone. This idea of it's the apocalypse and you have to worry about people.
They said that there is going to be microtransactions, but it's only going to be for aesthetic things such as clothes and stuff like that. And the only reason they're doing that is to make DLCs free.
But that's, I mean, the other thing okay, maybe it will make DLCs free. That seems more like a concession more than a reality of the financial situation. For stuff being aesthetic, okay, I'm fine with it being aesthetic, I guess. But the other thing they said is it will also keep the servers on. And this is my biggest problem with online and always online only games, is that this means that at some point in the future, you will not own Fallout 76. It will be shut down, and you won't be able to play it.
But they did say that they're going to allow people to have their own servers, so they can run their own servers, kind of like Minecraft does.
They said they had plans to. They did not say that that will be at launch. And
They said it's not going to be at launch, but it will be pretty close after that. Also, I forgot to mention that the reason why we pre-ordered is we're both on the beta now.
Okay.
So.
Well, again, if you want to be on the beta, that's cool. But I feel that a company like, well, one, Bethesda, the idea that they're going to beta test this and get all the bugs sorted out, I find hilarious. I mean, it's a reality of open world games. You cannot test for everything. It's
My-
physically impossible, and people will break stuff all the time.
My friend Craven was a beta tester for Elder Scrolls Online.
Ooh, that's rough.
And one time he was talking with somebody, and it was just nothing was going on around him. There was no monsters or anything. It just launched him. No warning.
Yeah.
He went flying.
Yeah, they've never made historically the most stable game engines in the world. But it's part of the charm, though.
Yeah, it is.
You know, like people found out in Skyrim that it was, oh, if you put a basket on someone's head, they can't see you rob their store. If you get hit by a giant's club, you get launched into space. Those were things that became, oh, they're bugs. They took them out, and then people said, but we liked it. We liked that jankiness. We liked the idea of these bugs being almost features within the game, and then they reinstated them, and now they're part of the ethos and the culture of what Skyrim ended up being. So, for Bethesda at this point, it would almost be hilarious if there wasn't game-breaking and weird bugs inside the game. It's just now it's going to be multiplayer, which, you kind of don't want the griefing stuff. You don't want the guy that is under the world and he's camping at the spawn. You don't want that kind of thing happening. So they're going to have to be kind of careful about how they implement these things, and it's going to have to be a lot more robust as a whole, because it's no longer one person running one instance. You're going to have, what they say, maximum of 36 people or something like that in the game.
I think,
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, per server grouping. I don't know what you call it, per shard maybe.
Yeah.
Which server nomenclature are we using? We're using Dark Souls, or using Star Wars Galaxies.
I think it's just server.
But yeah, so per each game instance, there's gonna be like a maximum of 36 people. And I'm like, that's a good number in my mind, but I think that it kind of, in essence, it kind of moves away from what Fallout I think should have been, which is like Fallout's big draw for me at least was being alone. This idea that's like no one's coming to save you. You're all by yourself and you're gonna die, and this is something that you have to take into account. It is a dangerous world out there. And this idea of you're going to have 4 players that can be on your squad, and you can run up and fight other squads, and you're sort of they're going to make harder monsters, of course, because it's going to be something that's more multiplayer MMORPG kind of based. But I feel that having enemies that are harder just to counterbalance having more people in your squad does not necessarily give you the same feeling of danger in the wasteland as the old Fallouts gave you. Similarly, I also kind of feel that they're going to still... I mean, it's running on the Fallout 4 engine, but I can't say that that's going to move over to gameplay. But I feel that it's still going to not be, the Obsidian levels of writing of New Vegas,
well, definitely not.
Where I'm gonna be like, oh man, that was a great story, and oh, there's so many crazy branching paths. I'm like, you're gonna kind of have to end up in the same spot because you're gonna be interacting with other players. So no matter what choices you make, they won't change the world. You can't have a megaton scenario where you blow up a whole city and it's just gone for everyone in the entire server. That would be something that they can't implement anymore, because it is now a multiplayer game. So it's just little things like that where I'm like, I'm still going to play it. I'll probably even really like it. But I just see the little writings on the wall that slowly change into, I'm not sure multiplayer was what Fallout was ever meant for. I feel that it was always meant to be a different kind of game. And it's also because I see so many games today that are not single player, and I feel that there are too many things that are leaving a single player style. Many of them are just moving to multiplayer because that's what the majority of people want. The new Call of Duty, I mean, hell, they're going to cut the single player campaign out of that. And
well, I mean, this isn't going to be like Fallout 4. They said Fallout 4 was going to be the single player game. This is basically Fallout 4 just multiplayer with a little something extra going on. So I mean, it's not like they're not going to make any more just first player games or single player games, but what I wanted to say is that for me, the reason why I liked Fallout was because it gives you some sort of hope that even though when things get like horribly bad, where it doesn't seem like you're gonna make it out of it, there is a way out. I liked that idea.
Oh yeah, I'm fully in the camp of humans are pretty much extinction proof at this point. It's just how deadly is our bottlenecking event? You know, I think that our technology will always kind of carry us through, and we're quite resilient to just about everything. It's just, is it going to be, a small level event? Is it going to be a KT extinction? Is it going to be Fallout levels? Is it going to be I Am Legend levels? There's all different types of potential perils that humans could run into, and I can't think of a single one that kills us but doesn't kill the planet. And I'm not saying like, oh, all the life on the planet dies. I'm saying our planet does not exist in the solar system anymore. It will be an asteroid field or something.
Yeah.
Like, that's about the only scenario I can conceive of where it's like, and humans didn't survive that one. But everything lower than that, Yellowstone supervolcano, that's gonna suck. That's probably one of the worst ones we can get, because we're overdue for that, and that will cause a massive food shortage. But humans will still survive that. We'll survive most meteorite impacts that don't vaporize everything on the surface. We'll survive most diseases. We're definitely going to survive a global warming. I mean, it'll kill a lot of people, but we'll survive it,
Yeah.
But I don't think that there's anything that could really do us in... As far as, like, if there was a Fallout scenario, if the world looked like this, which, by the way, I always love the post-apocalyptic stuff. I think this looks kind of pretty. But if we ended up with a world like this, it's like, no, people would be all over the place. Humans love the return to normalcy. I've been in, scenarios, and it's the hedonic treadmill. No matter what you get into, you will always return to a similar state of happiness and normalcy. It's like, yeah, the world could be shit, but you'll probably get through it. Like, there won't be that many, it may suck, and some people might get depression, but there are built-in mechanisms within your own biology that will allow you to survive. It's just most people don't, most people aren't ever in a scenario where you have to worry about, oh yeah, I need the hedonic treadmill to pick up so that I can live without, radiation.
Settler just chilling up here on top of a couch.
Hey there.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Want to keep your distance.
Now I see it.
Oh, wait a minute. Everybody, hang on. We got a talker here.
Why? Are you threatening
I'm
me?
a huge fan of the
It's just,
dystopian genre as a whole,
think I
for
ate
the
a bad
reason I
can of
stated
meat.
before. It's just, it
Okay.
helps me personally.
Maybe it was 3 cans.
Oh my
But,
God.
It seemed pretty
This guy's
tasty
talking
at
about
first,
eating bad meat.
but now it's got my guts all in a twist.
For instance, there's a con I usually go to in August, which is a gaming con. It's run by the people who run Wasteland Weekend in Arizona.
Yeah, have the rest of it.
Okay.
I'm never
And
touching the
good
stuff
friends
again
with a
as long
bunch of
as
them.
I live.
They're really fun and
Assuming I live through the
stuff to
day.
hang out with, but
Ugh.
me being
happen to
mostly
see that
blind and shit, I can't
Lukowski?
actually play.
Tell him I hope he dies in a goddamn
But
fire. Gosh. Sorry.
we do some
If it's anything like last time,
If you ever...
it's about to get kind of messy.
This guy's got food poisoning from canned meat in the wasteland, and he's shocked, for one. And for two, he says, if you ever find Lukowski, you tell him I hope he dies in a goddamn fire. The amount of times I've said
Hey
that about
there.
Taco Bell.
I'm really sorry about the smell.
I'm really sorry about the smell. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but God, that was funny.
it's okay.
Mock's saying that he can't hear you that well, Brandon.
Oh my goodness. He can't hear me, huh?
Yeah, check your OBS settings.
Well, how about now? Can you hear me now?
I hear him just fine.
Are we going all NPR?
No,
Are we going to be whispering into our mics with our
No,
sensual
I was-
voices?
I was in chill mode, and I was leaned back from the microphone. That was the problem.
But I like
Hello,
NPR.
other person.
That's Andy, by the way. The guy I've told you so much about.
Hello, Andy.
Today on KWUOT, we're going to be listening to some Anton Dvorak, played by the London Philharmonic. This was first played in 1984 and was recently replayed in the San Francisco Hall.
We will not be listening to that due to copyright infringement and not wanting to be C&D'd. Oh, shit.
Hey,
Dvorak's not that
Oh, son of a
young, is
bitch! Oh, damn. I am not going to make it through the... No, I died.
I haven't seen you die yet. Oh, yep, yeah, you're fucked. I didn't need to see you die yet to know that means you're fucked. You see, Brandon, you should have had a 10mm pistol on you.
I did. I didn't use it. Saving my ammo. Fuck! I should have saved. Alright, you know what? That's enough of this bullshit. I'm fast traveling back to Sanctuary. I've tried to go there 3 times and almost died all 3 times.
But that's how you build your XP, though. But you gotta live to have your XP.
I mean, who cares? I have all the fucking XP in the world if I'm dead. Who gives a damn?
By the way, the new Pip-Boy, or I guess the old Pip-Boy, I fucking love its design for 76.
Yeah.
I love oh man, it's like, how do you make retro look even more retro? And it's like they absolutely did it. It's so much more angular, and it feels like one of those old TVs with wood paneling on it. Yeah, I love it. I always love the Pip-Boys. I always feel like someone should be manufacturing Pip-Boys as like proper smartwatches.
Yeah, honestly, I agree with you.
Coming back? Okay, good. Look, it's a tiny child.
Public is here. Pull the wool out from under your eyes.
Yeah.
you'll get used to Diamond City security being unhelpful.
Well, I wonder when we're gonna get that game one day that lets you kill the children.
Whoa. What the hell? It's me. Creepy.
Gray with derpy hair.
Everyone else may be closed, but Diamond City Surplus is open 24 hours a day.
That's always the thing. Like, compliance never lets you kill the children, but Jesus Christ, everyone in Little Lamplight needed to die.
Sure. Let's take a look.
Anything and everything.
And actually, as it turns out, yeah, that was really important because then Maxon turns into the asshole in this game.
Okay.
So it's like, hey, you could have done the time paradox. You could have killed him before he ever managed to become, you know, head of the Brotherhood of Steel.
5 of those. I never used those. I'm keeping that. Never used those. Never used those either. And I'm completely out of ammo for that.
Your mom's out of ammo.
My mom's dead.
Oh.
Alright, let's see here. I don't need that many damn shotguns. Or that many
Did I-
batons.
Rocco, did I ever tell you the story when someone got mad at me and said, like, they were trying to be hurtful. They were like, your mom goes to college, and now we all make fun of them.
No, I don't believe you have.
Yeah, it was in high school. Someone got pissed off at me and said, yeah, well, your mom goes to college. So now we all make fun of him.
Well, damn.
I don't even remember what he was mad at me for.
Well, I
I
guess...
actually said what she was mad at me for.
Well,
How dare someone attempt to get an education?
I looked at her once, just looked at her. She was like, boo, Scooby-Doo, want some cookies? I was like,
Made rage.
I just looked at her in her general direction, and it's like, okay.
Alright. I've got
Never
money.
crazy peanut lady.
Oh, wait. I know I've got some junk, too. Here, have all the junk. I don't need it. Yeah, I better keep all the ammunition. Alright, let's see what kind of guns they got. I need a better gun that doesn't suck.
You need some Rudy Tooty?
In this game, maximum efficiency is just upgrade your guns at a workbench.
Put your phone and chill your little fanny pack out.
What the hell just happened?
Laura's boyfriend saying stuff.
No, my dad.
Oh, you're dead.
What about Fanny
No, you're
packs?
gonna... He's talking to Wampa. She was being a shit, so he made her come in here with me, so I have to watch.
I assume Wumpa is your cat.
Wampa is my mom's stupidly spoiled dog.
Okay.
Oh, submachine gun would be such a...
Guess who's coming with us on the trip to get to Knoxville? Yay.
The cat?
Wampa.
Okay, this person has like really it's a short hunting rifle. Oh well, you know what? Here, let's get rid of all of these. Let's get rid of. Oh no, I'll keep those in case need them and those.
I'd recommend putting resources into maximizing a pipe pistol because you can generally do that pretty cheaply, and then after that I'd focus on the 10 millimeter.
At this point, I'm starting to think I need every fucking stim pack in the wasteland.
Well, the way you play, you do. Go stealthy.
Hey,
you know, and then get all the passive buffs that let you like heal in the sun and shit.
Well, shit, can't afford that thing. That's I get a baseball bat, but I've got a Legionnaire sword. I might as well use that. And I'd love to have a submachine gun, but again, no ammo for it, and I'm not gonna spend the money on. What are they wanting for 45?
The game
they got 18
heavily
rounds for 45.
The game heavily incentivizes you to not use full auto, because if you use full auto, you basically take your ammo and its damage output and you basically third it. So you have to shoot 3 bullets for every 1 damage any other bullet would have done. If you want to maximize the conservation of ammo, you want to be using semi-auto weapons.
Mining helmet. No, I'm not buying that neither. Shit. Oh well, I'll give them a bunch of garbage. I guess I can square it up with some healing potions. Yeah, I'm cool with that. Get a bunch of caps. Alright, now I just gotta wait till morning so I can trade with people that have, actual weapons.
So, speaking of boyfriend from earlier, you'll be meeting him at the con. He's the one coming from England.
You had a boyfriend in England?
Yep.
That's a pretty
Elliot.
long distance relationship.
Yeah, it is. He's coming all the way here to go to BronyCon.
Well, I hope he enjoys it.
I'm sure he will.
You know, a shotgun's great insurance against raiders.
Yeah, no one cares. Yeah.
I've got a few minutes to browse.
Self-defense
No, I'm
at
talking
its
to
best.
the game. There's 338 Lapua. There we go.
Of course you would have installed a mod that gives you a 338 Lapua.
I've also got HK MP7 and a UMP on here. But they want entirely too much money for them. We got a laser pistol. I like the damage on that. Old Faithful. What the hell? No, I don't need Old Faithful.
I guess the only question I have is, in this game, can you get the Blade Runner PKD?
Can you get
if you install these mods?
I believe so.
Okay, because that might be the only gun that I actually really miss from New Vegas. I always
miss
got
the hollow rifle.
Hollow rifle's okay, but the PKD, I mean, come on, you're blasting fucking replicants. Like, there's like never been a more iconic gun from any movie.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm sure Brandon's gonna say some bullshit of like, oh yeah, but that gun though.
Oh yeah, but Dirty Harry.
Yeah, Smith & Wesson Multi 29 is pretty iconic. However, I guarantee you, because he doesn't say the name of it, people can't identify it. I know this because I was in a gun store where a guy said, oh, here's Dirty Harry's gun. And it was a 44 Magnum, but it was like a Taurus Raging Bull. And I told him, no, that was a Smith & Wesson Model 29. And he said, what the hell do I know?
Yeah, it sounds about like most people who work in a gun store.
Yeah, that's pretty much how every gun store actually goes down. It's just like, actually, that's the wrong gun. What the hell do you know? You don't work here.
Rudy Tooty point and shooty.
Oh, wow.
That's what all guns are. Rudy Tooty point and shooty.
No, not all guns are that. Some are quite bad. I had a friend who I'm trying to help with his carry permit, and apparently earlier today someone was trying to tell him that a NAA revolver in 22 would be like the best carry pistol of all time.
So it's not.
And unfortunate is he's at the point where it's like he doesn't know what's actually true and what's bullshit. So I think he kind of believed it until I told him otherwise. But that's a problem. Is like I think that people don't actually know, and they're running into Dunning-Kruger syndrome where they're like, "Oh no, I absolutely know what is the best gun in the world, and here it is."
Up from Quincy?
And
Yeah,
they
I
don't
don't know anything.
I ain't seen nothing. I ain't heard.
Yeah, I'm pretty into guns, and Brandon, are you into guns a little bit?
No, I hate guns.
Okay.
I think we should ban them all.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna have to fight you on that because I believe that a Second Amendment right is vital to a free and stable democracy. But anyway, so like we're gonna get into words about this, so I guess I'll just have to shut up about guns for now.
I don't think I could ever actually use a gun. I can never legally drive, so I don't think they'd give me a gun.
Well, as long as you're not an adjudicated mentally defective, you can absolutely own a gun. I would just not recommend it if you cannot see past the sights. I mean, you never know. Maybe you'd become like Daredevil with a gun or something like that. Like you could learn to aim by ear and feel.
Well, one time I used a shotgun, and my first ever time using it, I did shoot all 3 clay pigeons, even though the first time I fell on my ass because I didn't realize how heavy they were. But I still hit it.
Yeah, well, you know, results.
I won an award for that. That was pretty neat.
I wonder. I'm thinking of it now because I'm thinking like I have seen cases of people who are fully blind learning to use echolocation to identify their surroundings. And I wonder if you could hone that to the point where you would be able to actually tell like a person and blindly aim in that direction to hit somebody.
That'd be rad.
I guess the problem would be once you fired the gun, like you'd have to get something with a suppressor because once you fired it, you know, the bones in your ears start retracting and you start hearing a lot less. So you wouldn't be able to use it over multiple shots. But you could, if you get a suppressor, you might be able to use echolocation to like blindly aim. I assume though when you say you're mostly blind, you actually mean you're legally blind and not, you know, black, can't see a damn thing.
I have only one eye that kind of works.
Okay.
The other one does not.
Are you missing the other eye?
No, it's just dead. There's no veins. It's a pocket of jelly.
Have you ever thought of getting a cybernetic eye? And now I'm not talking about one that lets you see. I'm talking about one that's gonna have like LEDs and shit in it.
No, I looked into getting a bionic eye because my aunt got 2, but she said the noise of them focusing was very loud inside of her head. It was just like a constant, and that drove her nuts to the point that she had them take them out. So I don't know if I can handle that.
I think I would like to hear these things. Alright, this isn't working out for me.
No, I'm not saying like bionic that'll help you see. I'm saying like straight up get eyes that are fun, i.e. like Terminator eyes or maybe like some anime eyes. Get some heterochromia going on.
I actually already have heterochromia.
There we go. The transformation has been completed.
I'm surprised, but I'm like, actually, that explains the blindness now.
Yeah.
So have you dyed your hair purple, and do you have a big spiked frosted tip hairstyle? Because clearly you need to be an anime character.
No. She is Morning Glory.
Yeah.
And your hat just packed it all the way back down.
Yeah, that's why
I got an empty chair here, just waiting for some beautiful customer to get a haircut.
I got my hair done yesterday, but I just got bleached streaks. So.
Getting there. Again, you need to go full anime apparently, because like heterochromia means that you are either the protagonist or the antagonist of an anime.
I had what Jeff called anime hair because I always had hair covering my bad eye, but he got pissed off and was like, and he got Elliot involved too. He's like, get the hair out of your face. So I got a new haircut to get the hair out of my face, and he's like, now you can wear an eye patch like you're supposed to. And I'm like, you know, I hate them, right? Because they're super ugly and they don't make any for women. Because they don't. Every eye patch I had except for one, which is like a child's eye patch, never fit my face. And he's like, we'll take care of that. I was like, if you say so. But
I'm just looking over here at like my 3D printer, and I'm like, I wonder if I could 3D print a cool looking eye patch. Because the thing you want is like, you want the cool stuff that defies physics. not like one that you have to have over your actual eye, but like you want something that, like maybe you have to use like spirit gum in the morning to like actually, you know, to actually like put it on so it sticks, but it doesn't have any straps around it. Because the thing is, it's got to be the eye patch is always the limit breaker, right? You know, it's like the eye patch comes off, and then you reveal that you have heterochromia, and then you go Super Saiyan. Like that's the rules of anime.
Well, I'm actually supposed to wear an eye patch because my right eye trying to work is forcing my left eye to work even harder, which is what's causing my bad headaches. So
that's interesting.
But I don't do it. So.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that. I'm like, oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
I suppose
Whenever I
it would
went
be
to
a thing.
see my eye doctor about this, do you know what he said about it? He said, "That's cool." I was like, "Oh yeah, cool." He's like, "There's no veins in your eye."
Oh, that's the thing. It's just like some doctors are straight up into the like, I've never seen this before. That's interesting. And I've had that happen where you go in there and they're just like, oh yeah, oh Jesus, that's pretty dangerous. It was well, yeah, they come in and they're just like, oh shit, and then they bring in like another doctor. It's like, oh, check this out, and they bring, and then that doctor brings in like another doctor, and it's like suddenly every doctor in the world, in the entire hospital, has come into your room and is like, oh, check out this medical case. This is interesting. I've never seen anything quite like it.
Yeah, that's pretty much what happens with my eye. They're like, wow, it tries to work, but it just can't. But it tries. It's kind of weird. Also, the pupil's a bit off-center, which is kind of strange. The whole eye itself is off-center, like derp eyes off-center. For the reason why I fucking hate my eyes. But yeah, I'm supposed to keep it covered in order to stop the headaches, but I don't because I just don't like my eye patch. Like, I have one with Cthulhu on it. It takes up half my face. But it's the softest one I have, and then the one that fits me is my rocket ship one. And of course, it's a fucking rocket ship.
What's bad about rocket ships? You hate space?
No, it's just weird because, like, it's obviously for, like, a kid's costume or something. It was actually given to me by one of the Dystopia Rising people that was at GlitchCon last year.
God, I'm gonna have to find what that thing is called. Brandon, do you remember what this thing is called? It's a night vision like monocular device that you wear, and you generally put it on like a PVS-14 mount on your helmet. But it also has a fusion of thermal imaging that it overlays.
Not that I can remember.
Okay. I know there is this device, and I'm like, you should get that permanently mounted to your head. Because then you would not only have night vision, but also thermal vision. And a combination of the two.
The good news is I'm working, it's not going to be done by BronyCon, but I was working on a Blackjack cosplay. She wears an eye patch at one point, so I can get away with that, even if it is on the wrong eye.
Yeah. Well, hell, just cosplay whatever you want. It's not like they're like, despite the fact that some people will always be the negative Nancy's of being like, you know, Blackjack actually wore this type of eye patch because it was listed that it was made out of this material. It's like, you know what, fuck those guys. Like, you want to cosplay as something, go cosplay as something. You know, I'm very anti body shaming and, you know, super accuracy. I appreciate super accuracy, but it's not something that I'm gonna force people to abide by.
I tried to cosplay a like version of Mangle from Five Nights at Freddy's once.
Ooh, that sounds cool.
And they were like, the patch is on the wrong side.
Oh god, no wonder. Holy shit! Remember that potted meat the guy was talking about? 25 rads.
Ooh, yeah, that's not great.
No wonder he shit his asshole out.
Also,
it wasn't his asshole; it was his intestinal lining.
Gross. Last year I did Prompto, and my friend who let me borrow that cosplay because I didn't have any done it in time, she actually styled the wig to cover my eye.
How do you feel about us?
But it wasn't long enough, so my eye kept escaping.
Maybe one day I'll find out.
For pictures, and I was like, nah. But people liked my Prompto, which is good.
Yeah, that's definitely a surprisingly it looks simple, but I bet that's a much more complex cosplay.
Oh my god, I went to the mall with that fucking cosplay on, and there was no air conditioning. It was in August. I fucking died. My friends went and got frozen yogurt, and Gary turned around and he was like, "Laura, you're dying. You need to eat this." And then he pressed it into my face and took a picture and sent it to Carly and was like, "Hey, your girlfriend's face is covered in white shit." It's just...
But like that is the folly of cosplay, is that you can never really cosplay anything without overheating. Like
Oh my god, yeah.
There are no like I can't think of a single like cool outfit that's like, oh, that's completely practical and totally easy to wear in the summer. At this point, I've really considered. I think I don't know. I think at one point Adam Savage made a basic version of the NASA thermal control unit suit, which is basically a suit that you wear that's got a bunch of little tubes in it, and it pumps, I believe, ammonia through it to refrigerate and heat your body when you're in space.
That's neat.
However, I think he made a homebrew one and wore it because I think it was when he was wearing spacesuits from 2001: A Space Odyssey, and he wore them with Chris Hadfield. Watch out for that spotlight. But he wore them with Chris Hadfield as like, oh, he's an actual astronaut. And I always thought that it was like, I'm like, that's a really great cosplay for astronauts. But the idea of like a thermal control garment, I didn't realize it at the time because I never really thought about it and I hadn't cosplayed. And one day I saw a fursuiter and I was just like, you know, the dude was massive and he looked like he was dying of heat stroke. And I'm like, hey man, you okay? Like, are you dying of heat stroke? And he's like, it's incredibly warm.
Yeah, dude, I don't know how people could do that.
And I straight up was just like, oh, like, yeah, I was just like, you know, I was like, have you ever considered like some sort of thermal control garments or something? And he's like, and he pulled down the collar and he showed me that he was wearing like a homemade vest that was full of ice packs. And I was like, that's a significant amount of thermal mass and you've burned through it in like 2 hours since the con opened. And he's like, yeah. And I was just like, because when I went up and was like, hey man, and he was like, no, I'm not putting the head on because I'm going to die of heat stroke. So like that was the thing, is like he understood that it was incredibly hot, and it was, you know, this was a BronyCon, so it was, you know, it was the middle of June or August or July or somewhere when they were doing it. It was very hot at the time. So I've always been thinking about that since then. I'm like, you know, there are cosplays I would like to wear, but some of the stuff where it's just like, oh yeah, what if I wore like some, you know, T-51B power armor from Fallout? No, I can't.
You're gonna die.
Because it's like the choices are I make it out of foam, in which case it's even more insulating, or I try to make it out of like resin and plastic and stuff like that, which will be less insulating but still incredibly warm. And
you can try Warbler.
Yeah, but even then, all of that they're all polymers. They're all things that are going to keep heat in. Nothing is conductive enough except for metal. And if I'm making the damn thing out of metal, I might as well make a power armor suit. Like I might as well become Tony Stark and wear Iron Man armor all the time. Because that thing's going to be too heavy for me to possibly lift. So there are so many cosplays I've really considered, but it's like I can't do them because even like a moderate hoodie is too warm in the summer. So I've been really trying to develop a small, compact, lightweight thermal control garment, but I just have not really come up with anything that's reliable and viable for long-term usage. And by long-term, I mean like 3 days.
Did during the summer?
Huh.
I wore an Attack on Titan uniform in July. And
that's not the worst it could be. I mean, it's definitely like, you know, the light shirt, like the overshirt, the overcoat and stuff. But
it didn't seem like it would be, because I was doing bike. However, it was pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's got
straight.
Yeah, it's got that protective jacket on it. I mean, when I did a Vault Tech technician last year, you know, that was something I'm like, you know, dress shirt, dress pants, you know, overcoat, you know, lab coat, you know, air counter. It's like that doesn't even sound like it should be that hot, and it's just like just the lab coat alone was still pretty warm. And I spent most of the time at the con, like not outside, not taking pictures with anybody, and like it's surprising how like I really think that someone needs to be making like a somewhat cheap and affordable thermal control garment for everybody, you know, especially cosplayers and especially fursuiters. But I think the problem is, the problems at least I've run into is making it reliable, getting it quiet enough that it's not obnoxious, and sinking the heat is one of the biggest problems. Because I have not.
Sorry.
I would say because I've run into massive amounts of problems trying to be just like, okay, you can get it working for like a few hours, and then you die because the heat is now built up. The water or the coolant fluid is the same as what you're normally using, and it's the same temperature as you, and then you're not sinking any heat. So trying to sink that heat is actually, in my opinion, like incredibly difficult, and that's why I guess NASA's system costs like $250,000. You know.
My friend who has a fursuit has built-in fans.
Yeah, like fans would work. They're just, for my purposes, that's kind of loud and obnoxious. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I will agree that is the most effective means of having it work, but carrying enough power to make it run all day is a bit tricky and problematic. I mean, I know that the new Fallout 76 super collectible legendary edition, whatever it's supposed to be. I know that is going to be a helmet. It's like a T-51B helmet, and it's going to have a fan in it. And they even mentioned that when they were like debuting it at E3. It was like, it will have a fan inside of it because they know you're going to suffocate in this thing if we don't put, some sort of cooling mechanism in it.
Funny story about cosplays and stuff. And this is gonna sound really stupid and childish because it always does. But ever since I was little, I've always wanted to cosplay a Power Ranger. But I'm asthmatic. So I did a ton of research trying to figure out if there was a way around this to try to be able to do it at some point. Turns out, no, there is no way.
I'm like, the only way I can think of it is like asthmatic. That's problematic. Though, super potassium oxide or something like that might be. Like, I'm thinking I was like, how would you just introduce more oxygen into the environment? Which is like the worst idea you could possibly have. But I'm like, it could theoretically work. Like, it's just like, well, if you can't breathe in a full breath, if you had a higher O2 content, you'd be able to breathe more than a full breath with less lung capacity. But an electric oxygen concentrator is going to make you look like an old woman. So how would you, like what could you use? And I'm like, I think the early rebreathers used like potassium superoxide. But as far as what would actually be practical to carry around a con, yeah, no, it'd be difficult. I suppose you could just like literally just put an albuterol inhaler just right in the mouthpiece, and just every time you feel it coming on, just inhale deeply.
Yeah, those helmets, like, I was hoping that, because in the front of the mask there's that silver part. I always thought that's what they used to breathe, and that it was like some sort of fabric. Apparently it is a solid piece. I'm like, how the fuck do they breathe in that thing?
I mean, for film, generally the answer was they didn't. You took the helmet off after the scenes. I mean, you go and see some of the old like production photos from stuff like Star Wars, and I love it because you see like, oh, here's Anthony Daniels, and it's like, oh, here's Anthony Daniels like leaning against a board because he can't sit down because the C-3PO suit won't let him, and he's got the helmet off, and someone is sitting there with a piece of cardboard fanning his face.
Oh.
Because he's in the desert of Tunisia. Like, it's not a cold place out there, and he's wearing not only the metal and plastic of the C-3PO suit, but he's also wearing like the lycra and the wires that make up the suit.
Yeah.
Well, you seem pretty thoroughly fucked, Brandon.
No, I'm doing all right. I kind of fell though.
Yeah, I'm seeing that.
A few years ago, I have a Dr. Alfie's cosplay, which is a Kigurumi with a lab coat and glasses.
Okay.
And a blonde wig. The Kigurumi's a yellow dinosaur Kigu.
Oh my God,
I wore that.
Sorry.
I wore that to ACA, which was early spring, and it wasn't so bad. But then I wore it to GlitchCon, and I got mega overheated in that thing, and I was wearing shorts under it and stuff, and a tank top, and I was just like, and I legit got sick from wearing it.
Yeah,
too long and getting overheated.
That's always the problem I have. It's like I think at this point I'm just going to build mostly props and try to make them as functional as possible. Because it's such a pain to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to suffer and not have fun so I can look really, really cool, and people will appreciate the craftsmanship that went into this.
Yeah.
But
For BronyCon, I'm bringing my Rainbow Dash Kigu, and I'm gonna have a little sign that says, "My name is Morning Glory."
That is absolutely perfect. I've said it multiple times.
I have a lab coat somewhere, but I gotta find it. That would help, but yeah. Then he'll be like, "Are you the Rainbow Factory Rainbow Dash?"
It's like,
I
no,
just look at him
read the
yes.
extended canon. Like,
oh man.
one of these days it will be canon, right? Like, it has to be.
Jesus.
One of these
Well, it's like
fucking hit something.
It's like it's at this point it's like it's so popular. At some point it has to be, it has to come to a point where it will be more popular than the actual show.
You mean Rainbow Factory or Fall
No, Fall Equestria.
Oh,
Rainbow Factory is
actually,
like long
funny.
dead.
There's actually a shit ton of references to Fallout Equestria. There's an entire list you could find, and I was actually surprised at some of them. But one of them was actually in the episode where Starlight kept fucking up the past, and eventually they ended up in this desolate wasteland. Someone apparently said, "This is our gift to the Fallout Equestria fandom," and I was just like, "Well, I guess it's kind of canon now." But
I mean, that's the thing. It's like I feel like that was always a nod, but I'm like, I've never seen someone say, "Oh yeah, this was specifically a call out to that," because I thought that if they said that, they would be legally indemnable to paying royalties for that. No, but seriously, that was the thing. Like, they've said that at previous cons where they're just like, "Hey, have you read, My Little Dashie, and do you think you would ever incorporate it into the show?" And they say they've always said, "We never read any of the fan fictions, because if we read the fan fictions and we use an idea from the fan fiction, we're legally liable to pay royalties for that. If we haven't read the fan fiction and there's no evidence that anyone's ever seen the fan fiction, we can use the idea, because then we don't have to pay royalties to it." And of course, most people said
one big problem. Tabitha St. Germain is a huge fan of Fallout Equestria and has a copy of the book.
But she doesn't give them ideas. She just voices the characters. The writers are the ones that are actually the most critical element of it.
But apparently,
okay, Brandon, I just saw that escape there, and I have to comment. That was a nice, Jason Bourne-esque escape.
Do you like that? Just like, no, just jump off.
It's just like I was like, oh shit, dead, and then you were just like, no, just jumped off the bridge. Anyway, continue.
But yeah, I was reading the list of all the little nods towards Fallout Equestria, and I was just like, huh, because there's a bunch that I wouldn't have even thought of. So I can't remember what most of them are off the top of my head, but I can probably find that list again. But one of them that was kind of weird is there's this time on the Mystery on the Friendship Express or whatever.
Yeah,
the one with all the Chinese Pinky's oh, this guy did this thing, and was trying to explain her weird fantasy story. One of them, Pony Joe, had a Pip-Boy on that was supposed to be like a James Bond watch. I always figured it was supposed to be a James Bond watch, but if you look at it, it's not. So
I'm gonna have to go back at that, because I didn't think it was James Bond. I thought it was a Dick Tracy watch, because I thought it was like a Dick Tracy reference, since it was kind of like noir styled Agatha Christie-esque, murder mystery.
But I was like, when I was watching it, I never even made that connection. And there's another Pip-Boy that appears in one of the Fallout Equestria movies, which I'm gonna be honest, I did not even see that. I didn't go back to watch for it either.
Wait,
so...
Fallout Equestria
sorry. I meant, Equestria Girls. I can't even talk. Sorry, my brain hurts.
Because that's one of those where I'm just like, was there a Fallout Equestria movie? Because I'll watch that instead of reading the series if you guys tell me it's accurate enough. And then the second thing, okay, an Equestria Girls. Now that's the thing. I could maybe see it being an Equestria Girls, because Equestria Girls is kind of one of those, it's a bit of it's not tier 2 canon like the comics, but it's like tier 1.5. If the show contradicts it, it's not right. But
Yeah.
if a comic contradicts it, Equestria Girls is presumed to have taken priority. You know, there's always that kind of aspect to it. I'm like, you know, like, I think I've seen a lot more stuff in Equestria Girls than I have in other things, so I could believe it. Also, I have not seen all the Equestria Girls yet. I know that there's actually some coming out right now, aren't there?
Honestly, I have kind of fallen to the wayside. I haven't seen any new ones since Camp Everfree or whatever the fuck that one was.
Okay,
Or Legends
I've
of
seen,
Everfree.
yeah, I've seen the one past that. I know that there's I forget what it was called, but it was like Friendship Memories or something like that. The one with Wallflower Blush in it.
Oh, I did see that one. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I forgot
okay,
that.
okay.
I thought that was just like I didn't think that was an actual movie. Oh, that's just
It wasn't a movie,
episode.
but it was a 55-minute episode.
Yeah, it
You
was
know,
strange.
It was one of those where it's like, for legal reasons, not a movie. It did not get a theatrical release, but then some of the movies haven't gotten theatrical releases.
Yeah, I think the original and Rainbow Rocks were the only ones that did.
Yeah, so that's one of those where I'm like, not a movie, but I would, for all intents and purposes, I would say they wanted to make a movie out of that. And I think there could have been it could have, if it was 90 minutes instead of 55 or 60, I think they could have expanded it. But it's something where I'm like, I still enjoyed it. The concept was nice. I just really felt that it was an underutilized concept.
Honestly, I didn't really like it, but that's okay. I really liked Rainbow Rocks, though. I thought that was great.
Yeah, everyone loves Rainbow Rocks. But it's a scenario where
my one friend who just hates Equestria Girls in general. Like, oh my god, he's so salty. It's hilarious.
Well, to be fair, I think I will defend him in this case, and I think he has a right to be salty, because Equestria Girls as a concept is the wrong direction for Pony.
It is, but it's kind of hilarious at the same time.
Yeah, it does let them do different things. It does give us more Pony, so as long as the franchise increases, I'm kind of okay with that. But it is something where I'm just like, you know, they're trivializing what was a much more interesting concept, which is like, here is someone learning to be, you know, a princess, you know, someone who is a highly, you know, respected scholar, somewhat becoming a head of state. You know, it's like, that's a pretty big thing. And then they sort of trivialize it as, hey, check it out, you know, now they're in high school and have high school problems, and now they're talking about boys. And it's like, yeah, you could have not. She could have actually had, like, real problems in this world that is foreign and different to her own culture. You know, like, at this point, I'm surprised that, like, I've always wanted to, it will never happen, but I've always wanted to see, Applejack. I've always wanted to see a scene where, you know, the next magical entity goes to, you know, Canterlot High School, and Luna just comes out in body armor with like a Spaz 12 and just starts shooting, going, no, we're not having this shit happen again. Because the world that they live in is not the Pony world. There are very different, there are huge differences between the two, and I kind of wanted them to exacerbate the huge differences between the two. You know, I wanted Horse Twilight doing horse things in human world. I wanted, you know, human characters doing human things in horse world. I wanted that kind of dichotomy.
I'm really wanting them to bring the Equestria Girls into
the Pony world
MLP realm. That would be great. Could you imagine how funny it would be seeing Twilight freak the fuck out because, you know, she's not used to having hooves and then, like, falling on herself hilariously.
Yeah, things don't make sense. She for some reason she flies everywhere, kind of like Rainbow Dash, because she can technically fly in the Equestria Girls world. So it's like that makes that she's more comfortable with that than she is walking on four hooves. And then you would have the other thing of like, oh, I have magic, you know, and it's just like, not only do you have magic, magic is common. Like they brought that, I can't remember what short it was, but do you remember that there was a short where they were talking about the powers that they have now? And they were like, oh, the more we use our powers, the stronger they become. So let's not use our powers so we don't become all Superman-like and just wreck everything accidentally.
I don't remember that, but I believe you.
That was a thing that they said, where it was kind of like, oh, they're trying to nerf their powers so they don't use their powers all the time for everything. But I'm like, is no one gonna recognize that, like, Rainbow Dash getting faster and faster has pretty much no downsides? That Applejack getting stronger, they're like, oh, well, yeah, but she ripped off her, she ripped off her locker door, you know, because she didn't realize her own strength. And I'm like, Yeah, that's the problem with Superman.
Hey, I actually gotta go, but feel free to add me on Discord or whatever, and we'll talk more about this later.
Okay.
See ya.
See ya.
Bye.
I think we're just gonna finish these idiots off and call it good.
All right. But yeah, I feel that there's like.
One round. Just fuck.
I always feel like there's, you know, there's always been like this dichotomy of like, oh, now the Equestria girls have magic, and I'm like, okay, you know what? Magic seeping in through a extra dimensional portal, I'm kind of okay with. You know, I can feel like that's a good justification for why certain people have magic and certain people don't. Why the Sirens suddenly rise back to power because they had no magic until, you know, Sunset Shimmer tore open the rift between the worlds. It's like, these are good reasons. These kind of explain why is everything happening now and why is it not happening 1,000 years ago? You know, why isn't it happening after Starswell threw them here? Like, those are good reasons. I like those, and I like that the comics kind of, you know, take an extra step and say, oh, here's other reasons why. And it's like, oh yeah, guess what? Originally, before Twilight, Celestia was using the mirror. And guess what? Celestia fucked up an entire world because she used the mirror. So, you know, like that's a huge aspect to a lot of these things, is that there are consequences to this kind of technology. And I always love that. I always love the idea of superpowers, but also super consequences. You know, the idea of like, I don't know, like in Justice League movie, you know, the Flash mentions he's like, yeah, I burn up a lot of calories running, so I just have to consume everything. Like, he's always eating because he cannot stop himself from burning his calories because of his superpowers. You know, I like the idea of, you know, maybe you can teleport into another world, or like, what's a good one? Oh, right. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Tomorrowland.
I remember it.
It's an all right movie, but one of my favorite things in it is the idea of, here's a teleporter. It's got weird proclivities, like you're gonna feel like you're gonna die because it's going to suck all your blood sugar out of your body in half a second. Why? Doesn't matter why. You know, it just does. You know, and it's like, and he's just like, you're gonna feel like you're gonna want to die. Don't worry, you're not dying. And then they go through the teleporter, and the second our protagonist gets out on the other side, she goes, I'm dying. Oh God, I'm dying. It's like, you're not dying. There's Coke in the fridge. And they go over to a fridge, and she opens up a Coke, and she just chugs an entire Coke. And then he opens up one to drink for himself, and she drinks his. You know, and it's just like, yeah, that's the thing. It's like, but I love that kind of thing. I love where it's like, the technology works, but there is a market downside to the technology. And in this case, it's like, yeah, you can teleport, but you'll feel like you're dead when you get to your destination. That's a good, you know, that's a good point. You know, that's a good thing where it's just like, yeah, you don't use a teleport too often then, because it sucks. But if you needed it, you know, it's useful. You know, it definitely has its upsides, but you gotta be like, I really don't want to fight anyone.